Ever wonder if you could hack your brain so that you and your partner can become better at conflict? Good news, you can. And I'm going to teach you how to do that today. My name is Tom Brewitt, and I'm a licensed MFT with a practice in California and Colorado. I help gay couples create thriving partnerships and celebrate everything that's awesome about being queer. If you don't identify as gay, the good news is you can probably learn something today too. So sometimes things can get out of hand in conflict. If you've been there, you know. Let's take our imaginary couple, Ralph and Andy. Ralph says something about the cleanliness of the bedroom and it hits Andy the wrong way. Andy gets defensive and makes a comment about how Ralph did the laundry incorrectly. Before they know it, voices have been raised and the temperature is rising. Their unique cycle has started, and if they don't take an exit ramp soon, they know how this will end. That brings me to the hand model of the brain. So Dan Siegel is a psychiatrist who has done much great work understanding the way that the brain works and how to leverage that knowledge to improve human connections. He uses the hand as a quick way to demonstrate the major parts of the brain, like the prefrontal cortex, which is right here, and the limbic system, which manages the fight, flight, and freeze response. As a way to visualize this, make a fist with your hand, with your thumb tucked under the your four fingers like this. The four fingers represent the prefrontal cortex, which is like the orchestra conductor, and your thumb represents your limbic system. When we get activated, and we all do from time to time, just like Ralph and Andy did in the example before, when that happens, your limbic system, so your thumb, has gotten fired up. This is a great thing if you're running from a bear that it's about to attack you and eat you. And I'm not talking about the sexy muscle bear with the hairy chest here. Sorry, I had to go there. Anyway, it's not always best if your limbic system gets activated when you're trying to have a constructive conversation with your partner. When your limbic system is activated, like this, your thumb is out and your prefrontal cortex is offline, or your lid has been flipped, using the hand model of the brain. And when your thumb is out, your thinking brain is offline, and it's hard to make the best decisions or even calm yourself down. One thing to remember is that everyone's brain is different. Let's say Ralph had a history of growing up in a household where his father was an alcoholic and would get angry and violent when he drank. This will impact the way that Ralph's brain, and specifically his thumb, reacts when he feels threatened. And let's say Andy grew up in a household where conflicts were avoided and big things were swept under the rug. This will also impact how the brain deals with conflicts as an adult. So I want to introduce you to a concept called the window of tolerance. This is another Dan Siegel term that refers to the optimal state when our brains and nervous systems are at their best. So your thumb is tucked in and your prefrontal cortex is online. You're able to stay curious and not get defensive. You're calm and you're centered and you're able to have productive conversations with your partner. If Ralph and Andy had been inside their window of tolerance, things wouldn't have escalated as quickly as they did. The easiest way to think about this is to picture a spectrum with the window of tolerance in the middle. That's your optimal arousal. And you have hyper arousal on one side and hypo arousal on the other. All right, so what happens when you get triggered? Using the example I mentioned above, let's say that both Andy and Ralph got triggered from the argument they were having. When someone gets emotionally flooded and moves outside their window of tolerance, they can become either hyper aroused or hypo aroused. So what is hypo arousal? Let's say that Andy, who grew up in a conflict avoidant household, typically shuts down when he gets triggered or voices get raised. This can be similar to the freeze response that I described before. When Andy moves outside of his window of tolerance, he can't think. He checks out and becomes very passive. This is an example of what hypoarousal looks like. Think a computer shutting down. What is hyperarousal? On the other end of the spectrum, Ralph responds in a totally different way. He becomes hyper-aroused. This is similar to the fight response. His mind moves quickly and it's tough for him to calm himself back down. Sometimes he even gets loud or angry depending on how things progress. Now you might be asking yourself, what can you do about this when it happens with your partner? There are lots of things you can do when either of you moves outside your window of tolerance during a conflict. First off, when you're having a conflict with your partner and you notice that either of you has moved outside of your window of tolerance, it's time to pump the brakes and take an exit ramp that will lead you out of the conflict. As I described before, when you're triggered, your frontal cortex, or the orchestra conductor inside of your brain, has gone out for a smoke break. There's no point in trying to have the conversation until you're both calm and your brain is back online. A timeout is an excellent way to slow things down and take an exit ramp. Timeouts can be tough in the moment, but they will save you so much grief in the long run. One of the most important things that you can remember is that when one of you calls a timeout, that's it. The conversation is over. You don't get one more comment, you don't throw one more insult. You stop talking and you respect the timeout. It takes a lot of courage to call a timeout in the moment. And you want to honor the work that your partner is putting into trying to change the negative cycle that the two of you are stuck in. If you like what you're hearing and you find it useful, join my email list and stay up to date with new videos and resources that you can use today to improve your relationship. I'll be launching a course soon that will offer more in-depth coaching and resources to stop conflict in its tracks. Till then, be kind to one another.